Hi students, this is A. Mandri Kumar Rajesh. In this video, we are going to discuss a topic called life cycle patterns of plants. The life cycle of all sexually reproducing plants follows a pattern of alternation between haploid sexual generation called gametophyte with a diploid generation called sporophyte. So, the life cycle of all sexually reproducing plants follows pattern of alternation between haploid sexual generation called gametophyte. So gametophytic generation represented with the ploidy number N with a diploid asexual generation called sporophyte. So sporophytic generation represented with the ploidy number 2n. So this phenomenon of alternation between the gametophyte and the sporophyte in the life cycle of plant is called as alternation of generation. So this phenomenon of alternation between gametophyte and sporophyte in the life cycle of plant is called as alternation of generation. So alternation of generation means the haploid gametophyte and the diploid sporophyte alternate with each other in the life cycle of a plant, and that condition is called as alternation of generation. And there are two types of alternation of generation. They are isomorphic. This is the first type. The second type is heteromorphic. So there are two types of alternation of generation. They are isomorphic and heteromorphic. Isomorphic means in the alternation of generation, the sporophyte and the gametophytes are morphologically similar, and that type of alternation of generation is called as isomorphic. While in the case of heteromorphic, the sporophyte and the gametophyte are morphologically dissimilar, and that condition is called as heteromorphic alternation of generation. Example for isomorphic alternation of generation is called some algae. While in the case of heteromorphic bryophytes, example for heteromorphic alternation of generation is bryophytes and some higher plants. Then I am going to tell you the types of life cycle pattern in the plants. Let me tell you the types of life cycle pattern in plants. There are three types of life cycle pattern found in plants. They are haplontic life cycle, diplontic life cycle, then the third type is haplodiplontic life cycle. First I am going to explain the haplontic life cycle. So in this life cycle, The haploid phase is the dominant phase. That is, the gametophytic phase is the dominant phase, and that phase is independent and they are photosynthetic. So, in the haplontic life cycle, the gametophytic phase is the dominant phase. That is, the N phase is the dominant phase. And they are photosynthetic and they are independent. The sporophytic phase, so this is the sporophytic phase, 2N is the sporophytic phase, is represented by zygote. The sporophytic phase is represented by the zygote. So this gametophyte produces gametes. So here they are given gametogenesis. Gametogenesis means the production of gametes, two types of gametes, male and female. Syngamy means fusion of gametes. Syngamy means fusion of gametes. So fusion of gametes takes place, results in the formation of zygote. So each gamete contains, so male gamete contains N. So they are haploid in nature. Then female gamete contains N. So they are also haploid in nature. So fusion of gametes takes place, results in the formation of zygote, and the zygote contains 2N. They are diploid in nature. So the sporophytic phase is represented by the zygote and they are diploid in nature and they are short-lived. Example for haplontic life cycle is volvox and Spirogyra. Example for haplontic life cycle is volvox and Spirogyra. So these are all algae. So these are all volvox and Spirogyra are algae. Then in the diplontic life cycle, the dominant phase is the sporophytic phase. In diplontic life cycle, the dominant phase is the sporophytic phase. And they are photosynthetic and they are independent from gametophyte. So here you can find the sporophytic phase is the dominant phase, and sporophytic phase is represented with the ploy number 2. Then here gametogenesis takes place. That means the production of male and female gametes takes place. They undergo a meiosis process called meiosis, that is the reduction process, and they converted into haploid. Then fusion of gametes take place, that is the syngamy takes place, results in the formation of zygote, and it represents the sporophytic life cycle. So in diplontic life cycle, the sporophytic phase is the dominant independent photosynthetic phase. Here the gametophytic, that is the gametophytic phase is represented with single to few cell of gametophytes. Single to few cells of gametophytes. The example for the diplontic life cycle is fucus. Actually, fucus is an algae. Fucus is a brown algae, macroscopic algae, which are found in marine environment. So fucus is a marine macroscopic brown algae. Then gymnosperm and angiosperm. So the sporophytic phase is dominant in fucus, gymnosperm and angiosperm. Then I am going to tell about the intermediate phase, haplodiplontic life cycle. Let us talk about the haplodiplontic life cycle. This type of life cycle is found in bryophytes and pteridophyte, which is intermediate between haplontic and diplontic phase. So this type of life cycle is found in bryophytes and pteridophytes, which is intermediate between haplontic and diplontic phase. Then both haplontic and diplontic phase represented with multicellular, represented by multicellular. But they are differing dominant phases. I will explain it. In bryophytes, the dominant phase is gametophytic phase. In bryophytes, the dominant phase is gametophytic phase, that is N phase. While in the case of pteridophyte, the dominant phase is sporophytic phase, that is 2N phase. In bryophytes, the dominant phase is gametophytic phase. In pteridophyte, the dominant phase is sporophytic phase. Then this gametophytic phase is alternate with short-lived multicellular sporophytic phase. Then that sporophyte depends upon this gametophyte for nutrients, totally or partially. In bryophyte, the gametophytic phase is the dominant phase. It is alternate with the sporophyte, short-lived sporophyte, and that sporophyte depend upon the gametophyte for nutrients, totally or partially. While in the case of pteridophyte, the sporophytic phase is the dominant phase and it is alternate with short-lived multicellular gametophytic phase. They are saprophytic or autotrophic. The gametophytes are saprophytic or autotrophic and they are short-lived and they are independent from sporophyte. In pteridophytes, the gametophytes are independent from sporophyte. So this type of life cycle is called this haplodiplontic life cycle. So that's all about life cycle pattern of plants. If you have any doubt, please clarify with me. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you.